your seats, please. And if councillors and visitors, please remember to switch your electronic devices to silence. Welcome everybody along this evening, and I'd especially like to welcome those viewers who are at home watching via the live stream. I'll now ask if you can all please be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Councillor Proud, could you please read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Olo, could you please read out the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Wodjab people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for the elders.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. That brings to item 1, the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 15th of November 2022 open at 6:30 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. I have an apology tonight from Councillor Ree. 3, approved leave of absence. I have nil. Item 4, disclosure of interest. And disclosures from the planning and development meeting can be found on the agenda of tonight's meeting, and they're currently displayed on the screen behind me. For tonight, Councillor David Lagan has disclosed an impartial interest in item 13.1 as he is Chair of Walga North Metropolitan Zone, and I have declared an interest as I am a State Councillor on Walga. Councillors, are there any other disclosures at this time? Not at this time. In that case, I'll go on to item 5, petitions, and we'll start with item 5.1, petition closing the right of way between Normandy and Dundas roads. Is that to be read out? No. Just read. Okay. Councillors, are there any other petitions this evening? Councillor Corrado? Yes. Yeah, if you could just stand up and read those, please.
Okay. There are two tonight. The first one is about the Balga and Nollamara Autumn Club's transportation assistance. Many seniors who are members of the above clubs have reported difficulty attending community and club events due to the lack of available transport. Many members are no longer able to drive, are too unwell or to drive, or do not have any form of transport. The ability to not be an active part of the community is detrimental to many seniors and makes them feel isolated. We, the undersigned, do respectfully request the Council address this with the Balga Autumn Club at 81 Camberwell Road, Balga, and the Nollamara Autumn Club at 72 Sylvia Street, Nollamara, to offer our club members free or low-fee transport from their home to the Autumn Club and back. This has 38 unverified signatures.
Thank you. And your next one?
The next one is with regards to the Fieldgate Square Shopping Centre and surrounds. We, the undersigned, do respectfully request the Council addresses with the centre owners and management the following issues surrounding the Fieldgate Square Shopping Centre and surrounds in 25 Cullerton Crescent, Balga, for the following reasons. The site around the centre is very unkept, with weeds, rubbish, food scraps, unbroken glass that doesn't look good for the local houses around the area who are maintaining their property. And secondly, to increase street commercial rubbish bins in front of stores. This has 16 unverified signatures.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other petitions this evening? If not, if I can get a mover and a seconder for those petitions. Move Councillor Migdale, seconded Deputy Mayor Proud. Just a show of hands to accept those petitions, councillors. Thank you, and that's unanimous. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and the public questions were published in the minutes of that meeting. Item 7, public question time, and we have received some questions this evening, so I'll move on to those. And first up, I'll invite Wayne Blakeney, if you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you. If you just turn that microphone on, just your name and suburb to start, and your questions.
Wayne Blakeney, 8 Benyon Street, Trigg.
And off you go.
To put some context to this, I'm an owner of 8 Benyon Street, Trigg, a property in the immediate vicinity of and directly impacted by the proposed development at 331 West Coast Drive, Trigg, known as the Yellow Site. I'm also a member of the community group Too Big for Trigg that, as I'm sure most councillors are fully aware, has been challenging the approval of the excessive development proposed for this site for some 3 years now, and numerous JDAP meetings, etc. In February 22, the Supreme Court of WA listed the challenge to be heard on May 19 and 20 this year. The action brought was part heard on these dates, but was not completed, hence hearing was then adjourned for 3 weeks. A further day of hearing was scheduled for June 9th and 10th this year. Council at this time did not intervene before the initial Supreme Court action commenced to advise any changes to the recording of the zoning for the Yellow Site was either in the process of being done nor was being contemplated. After the initial hearing in May, but before the planned June 9th continuation, Mr. Trevor Service of the Department of Planning advised our legal representative that he received an email from Melissa Karatkoff of the City of Stirling dated the 30th of May 22, instructing him to make changes to the city's map 5 and change the zoning of the Yellow Site recorded from R20 to R80. My first question on behalf of Too Big for Trigg is, can the City explain how after 12 plus years of this being a local centre zoning, R20 but supposedly changed to R80, this change would be requested midway through our Supreme Court action, thus undermining the community's argument and causing the action to be withdrawn and a cost of around about $120,000 to the local residents. The timing of this raises some serious questions about the actions of the City in this matter.
Thank you. Ms Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question, Mr Blakeney. Hopefully I can clear some of that up for you. In July 2020, the City actually submitted some feedback to Plan WA Administrator, so the DPLH who are in control of that digital map. The City had identified at that point in time there were some errors in relation to how that map was displaying. That map in relation to the site you were sort of describing and other sites was depicting essentially 2 zones, so a local zone and an R20 zoning, or an R20 coding rather. It's also important to note that that digital map didn't reflect the approved signed gazetted map that the City holds. The DPLH at the time agreed that that was an error and confirmed that the site indeed didn't have a dual zoning and that any particular development over that site would be subject to the R80 provisions under the local planning scheme. The contact you're referring to in May 2022, some almost 2 years after we initially requested the changes be made, was officers following up on that initial request.
Okay. Can Council advise if between February 22 and June 10th, 2022, they received a request for the zoning to be formally changed with the Department of Planning? And if so, as affected owners, can the Council provide us with copies of any such submissions and other correspondence relating to this matter?
Thank you. Ms Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor. There was no formal rezoning request that was made because it was an error, so there wasn't anything required to be made formally to change that.
Okay. You can understand, the community's concern on this, but the timing is unbelievable. And lawyers were scrambling for copies of plans during those 2 days. It was scheduled for 1 day. It went 2 days, and shouldn't have got deferred that extra month. Extra month. Question number 3: can the City further explain why the zoning changes they requested to be made by the Department of Planning on City Map 5 did not include the recoding or rezoning request for all local centres, only selectively? Why was the Yellow Site, even though by far the smallest local centre in the city, randomly selected? While other local centres, such as the North Beach Shopping Centre on the same City Map 5, remained unchanged?
Thank you. Ms Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as outlined previously, the city didn't make a request to change the zoning. It was a request to correct an error. And as mentioned, the officers were following up on that request from almost 2 years prior.
But wouldn't that have been applicable for all local centres on that map? If it was a
I believe it was the only error. Ms Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we did highlight to the department back in July 2020, there were a number of anomalies and errors in the map. I believe some of those were corrected and some weren't.
Yeah, North Beach still sits as R20.
Thanks, Mr Blakeney.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillors.
Victoria Bovenkirk, please.
Hello, my name's Victoria, so I live in Balga. So I've come here tonight because I have a big concern about the dog park that we have at Balga. I'm a dog owner, but unfortunately there seems to be a large rise in dog attacks recently. So my question, my suggestion, I guess, is the rangers. There isn't any presence of the rangers in any way at all. There's a lot of inexperienced dog owners, and I feel that if the rangers could attend more, then maybe they could educate people, which would result in less dog attacks. I mean, we all want to enjoy the park with our dogs, but there's nowhere to find any advice, and people don't know what they're doing wrong sometimes. Yep. So, I mean, after numerous attacks, my dog was involved in one of them. I've called the city, and that a ranger has not even attended. The ranger hasn't made any investigation. So that's on numerous ones as well.
Thank you. I'll get Mr Quirk to provide some comment on that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. Certainly in recent weeks, in response to your query, we have increased patrols in the Balga area as well as Princess Wellington Reserve. Certainly more than happy to have more of a conversation about the incidents that you have observed or you've been involved in, but purely from a statistical perspective, there hasn't been an increase in dog attacks in Balga. That means that either one, they're not being reported, or two, they're not being observed by others. So as always, we really do ask residents to contact rangers directly on our 9205 number. We will attend in a prompt manner, and that enables us to investigate any particular matters, but certainly more than happy to have a conversation with you about the instances you've observed.
Because I just feel that the rangers should be attending more. I attend this park twice a day, so every day I go twice a day, and not once have I seen a ranger attend, even just as in a presence.
Thank you. Yep, and we're happy to follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Angie Cassian.
Good evening, Angie Cassian from Mount Lawley. I'm here to talk about the Mount Lawley removal of 33 trees for their green replacement program. There are 33 trees on the golf course, some as tall as 24 metres, that Mount Lawley Golf Club wants to remove to accommodate its greens replacement program, as set out in the course master plan, which is part of the key objectives of the Mount Lawley Strategic Plan 2021 to 2024. These 33 trees are not recommended by the arborist nor highlighted in the Arbor Carbon Tree Survey report as requiring removal at all, and are considered in fair to good health. Would Council consider it appropriate to remove trees for the purpose of relocating a green, replacing trees for sand bunkers, as in trees ID 320, 321 and 322, which are approximately 23 metres in height, and to sow plant non-endemic grass for linked ways from greens to tees? What would be the average height of any replacement trees species, and would this provide the same amount of canopy cover as existing trees if they were removed?
So the short answer to that last bit is no, they wouldn't. Look, what I can tell you is the officers of the city have committed to meeting with Mount Lawley Golf Course and inspecting each of those trees individually and having a look at each one before a report is prepared and it comes back to council for determination.
Are we as members allowed to attend that meeting as well?
The council meeting, you certainly are.
The one at the club tomorrow?
I'm not aware of the meeting that's on tomorrow. I don't think that's part of what I was talking about. But that would be up to the club, I would think. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. You are correct. There's a meeting tomorrow between the club and elected members have been invited to look at some of the trees that are proposed. I can't stress enough, it's a proposal at this stage. There's no decision made on which trees we would agree to remove, if any at all. So it is a proposal. So the meeting tomorrow is between the club and elected members, so it's not open to the public.
Okay, thank you. My second question. There appears to be a number of inaccuracies with the same trees being removed twice, e.g. tree ID 1375. Also, tree ID 1814 is part of the Greens replacement program, which according to data provided has already been removed. It was removed in 2021. What are the 5 key factors that the City of Stirling will consider and use to determine if a tree needs removal from the Mount Lawley Golf Course? For example, is it the tree's location on the golf course, health, species, lifespan, and/or recommendation from the arborist report? Please outline in order of importance what criteria Council adopts and what method it uses to calculate a tree's value on the Mount Lawley Golf Course.
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's very hard to answer that question directly, but we can certainly prepare a specific answer to those queries. I think it's fair to say that all those factors will be taken into account. And again, to stress that no decisions have been made on which trees, that we would agree could be removed at this stage.
Okay,
And
thank you.
just a quick follow-up. I think in terms of the wording in that question, it's important to note it's not the city saying we need to remove trees or requesting it, obviously. It's a golf course and they'll have to show officers why each tree needs to be removed or they want it to be removed.
Okay, thank you. My final question. According to Mount Lawley's Golf Club Beyond the Fairway 2022 Sustainability Strategy document, in years 2019 to 2020, 2,350 endemic trees were planted. In 2021, 615 trees, and in 2022, 194 trees, totalling over a 4-year period, 3,159 endemic trees. Tree modelling projection indicates an increase of canopy change in percentage of plus 2.7% over a 5-year period. Therefore, what key performance indicators are being used to assess survival rate of these 3,159 endemic trees planted that have no ID asset number? And what is the percentage of increase in tree canopy cover over the golf course during this 4-year period from 2019 to 2022? And how does this align with the Specterra analysis of tree canopy cover for 2022? And I'd just like to finish off with, why not keep all our existing tall canopy trees now as part of the urban forest plan and wait for the newly planted trees to reach maturity to provide the equivalent canopy cover before removing these healthy established trees?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get Mr Murphy just to provide some comment on that last one while you're there.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I do have some data in response to the question. So the urban forest tree canopy cover analysis of the golf course indicates that from 2017 to 2021, the total tree canopy cover increased by 2.95 hectares, which is from 26.7% canopy cover to 30.4%. Now, during this timeline, mid-canopy trees, which are trees between 3 and 12 metres, their cover increased by 5.3 hectares, while upper canopy trees, which are above 12 metres, decreased by 2.35 hectares.
Yeah, we're talking about the tall canopy trees because they're the ones that are being removed.
No, and that was a decrease. That was the last one.
Sorry.
That's
Thank
all right.
you.
We'll provide that in writing too, just so it's
Okay,
clear.
thank you.
Joe Tanner, please.
Good evening, Lord Mayor and councillors. My name is Joe Tanner. I'm from North Perth and also a member of Mount Lawley Golf Club. I have 3 questions. Mount Lawley Golf Club has recently put in proposal to remove 65 trees, 33 of which are directly related to a green replacement program. At an information evening, the Director of Grounds said that if the City of Stirling does not approve the tree removals, the green replacement program will still proceed. As Mount Lawley Golf Club communicated that to the City, and will it be communicated to councillors, that cutting down these trees is not a necessity to accommodate the green replacement program.
The short answer is no, it hasn't been communicated to councillors.
And the second question, the city have already approved the removal of 69 mostly healthy large canopy trees from the A-class reserve that is Mount Lawley Golf Club. The 3 removals have had a big impact on the course. Mount Lawley Golf Club would have no qualms in removing 554 healthy trees simply because they are not endemic to that site to achieve the sandbelt course that course architects have sold to them. At the July 5th council meeting, Mr. Jamov said that there would be no blanket determination based on origin. Does that mean there will be no more unnecessary removals of healthy trees simply because they are not endemic to Mount Lawley Golf Course?
And thank you for that question, Ms Tanner. All I can repeat is that staff have committed, our officers of the city, to inspecting each tree individually and having a look at it, eyesight, having a look at what they want to do before a report is presented to council to determine that.
The third question, are the city aware that the latest Murdoch University ecological linkages, they cite Mount Lawley Golf Club is in the middle of an ecological corridor, both white and red-tailed cockatoos are sighted on the course. Will that be a consideration and affect your evaluation on 3 removals of Mount Lawley Golf Club?
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the city is aware of the importance of the vegetation, and that will be taken into account when those decisions are made.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Ames Springham, please.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and gallery. In the Mount Lawley Golf Club Vegetation Management Plan, it says they want to cut down 65 trees, 33 related to the Greens Replacement Programme. The others are related to the Arbor Carbon report. That report recommended 39 trees be removed and a further 53 trees were identified as potential removals. They say that the maintenance costs may outweigh the benefits of retaining those 53 trees. If Mount Lawley Golf Club did decide to spend their money in cutting them down and chose not to maintain them, that would be 92 trees in total that the Arbor Carbon report suggested for removal. Given that Mount Lawley Golf Club have already removed 69 trees, that would leave a remaining 23 to be cut down, and yet are requesting a removal of a further 65 trees. Will the city be recommending that MLGC limit any further removals from this A-class reserve and spend their money on maintaining the trees?
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So just to be clear, the request at this stage is for the removal of 64 trees. It was originally 65, but one's been lost recently due to natural causes. So no decisions have been made. We'll be considering each tree on its merit before arriving at a decision. So it's difficult to answer that question directly other than to say that we will inspect each tree and make a decision based on each tree, as I said, on its merit.
Thank you, Mr Murphy. My second question, the 3 species of black cockatoos in WA Southwest are all under threat. They could be extinct in just 20 years. There are only 4,000 of the Borden's cockatoos left. Habitat loss is a major cause. These cockatoos have a 50-year lifespan. They are monogamous and pair for life. They have come to depend on pine trees as a food source. Mount Lawley Golf Club have cut down a number of pine trees. We still have a number of them left on the course. These cockatoos use the Mount Lawley Golf Course. Will the city take into consideration before allowing Mount Lawley Golf Club to cut down any more pine trees?
Yes, they definitely will.
Thank you. My third and final question. I understand that the councillors, along with some Parks and Sustainability staff, will be visiting Mount Lawley tomorrow. I often worry that by focusing on reports and numbers takes away from the overarching issue that in this environment and in these times, the cutting down of trees unnecessarily is just not the right thing to do. The tree removals and changes to Mount Lawley will be for golfers at Mount Lawley. Certainly not all the members are happy with the changes. The wider community and most of your constituents, I would think, would be all for protecting and preserving those trees. So when you are shown the trees tomorrow that they want to cut down, try to imagine them gone and try to imagine the course with even more missing, because this tranche is not the end. They want to take out 150. Will Council give some thought and merit to the wider community when making their assessments?
And the short answer is yes. The longer answer is council do take this very seriously. The reason some councillors are going out there tomorrow is a further request after all of council just about visited previously to better understand it and make sure they do have eyes on the ground and try to understand what is happening there. So it's not just about reading a report when it comes to council. So you have our assurance that council are taking it very seriously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do now, just before I invite the next person up, rule to extend question time as we exceeded the time limit. We're about halfway through, and I'll invite Kerry Hill if you'd like to come forward, please.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors and staff. My name is Kerry Hill. I'm a City of Stirling resident, a member of the Mount Lawley Golf Club, and many years ago was on the City of Stirling's tree committee. I love trees. My question is, why is the City of Stirling planting dozens of trees around the perimeter of Mount Lawley Golf Club, whilst apparently allowing the removal of dozens of trees from the Mount Lawley Golf Club on an A-class reserve owned by the state government and managed by the City of Stirling? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. The simple answer is that the city street tree programmes are independent from applications that the city received from a lessee seeking to remove trees within a lease premises, which is in relation to the lease essentially. So they are two separate things, but I understand the point. And as I said, I've probably said it a few times tonight, but at this stage it's just a proposal, those trees. So there's been no decision made by the council as yet to remove any trees on the golf course.
Just a further note to that, several of the trees, in fact about 24, have now had tapes put on them for removal, which you will see tomorrow when you visit. So this is very alarming to the members who are worried about the tree canopy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I can let you know that the council has requested that the trees are clearly marked, so that could be one of the reasons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Daniela Iron? Just your name and suburb, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniela Ion and I am from Nulamara. My first question is there a program for the maintenance of verges during the summer period to prevent fire? Because I saw a lot of long grass everywhere and I am concerned about this issue.
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, there is a programme to do exactly that. And if you're concerned about any particular location, then I'm happy to speak to you and we'll follow that up. But there is a programme.
Okay, thank you. My second question. According to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, there is a link between glyphosate, a commonly used herbicide, and cancer. There is increasing research on the negative effects of glyphosate for not only humans, but animals and plants too. It is banned in many countries, including the European Union. Does the City of Stirling use this herbicide, and if so, will it review its use considering the dangers of it?
Yes, and I can confirm the city does use that. It uses it very sparingly. It's been it's been part of many a report that's come to this council to consider. It's been a significant reduction over previous years. There are selected portions of the city, however, particularly protected bushland, where the people who look after that bushland do need to use it. But you will see a lot more, especially around our parks where kids and dogs play,
Yes.
and on our footpaths you'll see a lot more of the steam cleaning.
Yes, and my Second question, last question is regarding the petitions. I want to know when can we have an answer regarding the Balga and Ulamara Autumn Club's transportation assistance and Fieldgate Square Shopping Centre and surrounds.
Sure, and we'll obviously respond to those petitions once the officer's had time to review them. I will ask Mr Quirk, though, just to provide a quick update in terms of transport.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. Yes, as it happens, the City has been looking at our services on offer for seniors in our community, and certainly transportation has been identified on a regular basis as a significant barrier. The City does have a large suite of buses that are primarily used for our aged care services, our Commonwealth Government funded services. We're currently looking at how we can free up those services to, I guess, better accommodate the needs of more seniors in our communities. So whilst it's still a work in progress, it certainly responds to those queries from the Nolomara and Balga Autumn Clubs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Grantowskis, please. Just your name and suburb, thanks.
Peter Grantowskis, Inaloo. My first question. In a previous question to Council, I raised the issue of accessibility to toilets at Uluma Park, Inaloo, as I and many others feel there is a need for publicly accessible toilets in this popular and busy park. In response, the City of Stirling informed me that the toilets in question are not public toilets. Apparently, the toilets are not for public use, despite their location in a council-owned building in a council park. They are available exclusively for sport groups using that building, and that appears only to be soccer groups. I have noted on soccer match days and training evenings the toilets are indeed open and used by the players and associates. However, I have also noted when cricket teams are playing, both youth and adult, the toilets remain closed. On many occasions I have witnessed males associated with the cricket run across the oval to bushes to urinate. Males of the general public who use the park have also been seen to urinate in the bushes. Children playing in the park and play area have to be taken to one side by their parents to go to the toilet in the open. A resident opposite the park recently witnessed a tradie park his vehicle in the car park and dash to the clubhouse to find a toilet. Discovering there was no accessible toilet, he returned to his vehicle, which was parked behind the cricket nets, opened the door as a privacy screen and defecated. He then drove away, leaving his calling card where he dropped it. His actions are of course unacceptable, but highlight a need. As I stated on a previous occasion, people often arrive in the car park and look for toilets, only to be disappointed. I have been asked many times, how do I get into the toilets? To which I reply, you don't. So my question has two parts. Firstly, why are the toilets in this location provided for the exclusive use of soccer teams and their entourage, whilst the local residents, ratepayers, who pay for the facility, and visitors to the area are denied access to the facilities? Secondly, would the Council please give serious consideration to making the toilets at this location available for general public use during daylight hours? Other large and well-used parks have public toilets, such as Jackadder Lake Reserve, where the toilets have recently been refurbished, and Birreley Reserve, where toilets are currently being refurbished, yet Uluma Park has no publicly accessible toilets.
Thank you. Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll have to look into this circumstance a little bit further, but there are still a number of our public toilets that form part of a lease or a licensed area for a sporting club. That would certainly explain the current situation. Certainly more than happy to look at the demand for public toilets at Uluma. It is generally informed by two things. Our public open space strategy identifies what level of reserves have publicly accessible toilets, and then what's overlaid on top of that is whether a sporting club has a lease or a licence. But if there's a community need, I'm certainly happy to look at that further and liaise with you accordingly.
Okay, thank you. My second question, the erection of a fence along a 55-metre portion of the northern boundary of Uluma Park Inaloo is now complete. Many residents and park users have commented on it, welcoming its installation along what is generally considered a dangerous side of the park, being adjacent to busy and fast Birdwood Street. People are also asking if the council is going to continue the fence for the entire length of the boundary. I have raised this issue in a previous question to council when I pointed out the dangers presented along this side of the park. On behalf of fellow park users and ratepayers, I ask again, please will the council make funds available in the next financial year to continue the fence along the entire northern boundary of Uluma Park for the safety of the general park users, sports teams and motorists?
Thank you for that. I'll get Mr Murphy just to provide some comment. Is it Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, this matter has already been looked at by officers and decisions been made on the extent of the existing or the new fence. But bearing in mind your comments, we're happy to have another look at it. So
Thank
if I
you.
take that question on notice and get back to you.
Thank you. And my third question, I've previously raised the issue of lack of shade over play areas in the parks in my area of Innaloo, namely Uluma Park, Penelope Stubberfield Reserve and Lilacdale Road. These areas have no shade sail cover and depending on the time of day, tree shade is minimal or non-existent. In Uluma Park, branches have either fallen or been cut, leaving the play area with no shade at all. Conversely, at Jackadder Lake Reserve, there are 16 shade sails covering one play area, and the play area in Birrelly Reserve is also well covered by both trees and shade sail. Why do these parks have shade sails, yet those in our area have none? Has the council given any consideration to my previous request for shading, and should we expect any shade in time for the coming summer months?
Thank you for your question, and yes, I believe you have asked that question before. Council has committed to look at it. The reality, sir, is I doubt they'll be in place for certainly for this summer. I think it was committed that it would look at it as part of an overall in terms of the other reserves throughout the area as well. But the city's certainly looking into it.
Thank you very much.
Joseph Friel.
Hi, Joseph Friel from Innaloo. First of all, through the chair, may I first of all thank Mr Gianov and his colleague for taking the time to meet with me on site at Birdwood Street in Innaloo on November the 1st to discuss the traffic issues I've been highlighting and which formed the basis of the petition of 389 signatures I submitted to Council on the 25th of October 22. I felt it was a very useful and cordial meeting which I hope offers solutions. I note that a new traffic count survey is currently underway and I hope that we will get 100% of the facts and not the usual 85% political game playing as requested. But I do appreciate Mr Gianov taking the time to visit.
Thanks, Mr Friel. Let's keep your interpretation of that to yourself. Thanks.
I beg your pardon?
The next question, thanks, Mr Friel.
What was the problem?
Let's not start off like that, Mr Friel.
I don't know which part was the problem.
The part about political game playing instead
Well,
of
85% and 100% are two different numbers, so that's not political. That's not.
Mr Friel, your question.
It's a statement of fact.
Mr Friel, your question.
It's a statement of fact. At the council meeting of the 11th of October 2022, you were asked to provide dollar value to the level of rates raised by the City of Stirling for 1,510 homes in our particular area of Innaloo. Considering a further 402 homes have been built in that area over the past 15 years, what is the dollar value from the developers and what is the subsequent rates for the period, as no answer was received regarding this question? Can you please highlight the areas of our part of Innaloo that have benefited from the millions raised by the City of Stirling over the past 15 years from both developers and ratepayers? In essence, where is our share of the funds raised by the City of Stirling? As per capita, it does not stack up. The soccer changing facilities at Uluma Park are closed to the public, including the toilets. The Sportsman Bowling Club looks like a heritage-listed homage to the 1970s, which does not. How much does the City of Stirling get in rent for these two buildings separately? And what is the terms of the lease to the soccer club that gives them exclusive access to the facilities of the building?
Thank you. And we can respond to you in writing for that, Mr Friel.
Since I started to take an interest in our local area and look more closely at the facilities, amenities, as well as talking to long-term residents of the area, one couple going back 55 years, I've been made aware of the deliberate and willful neglect of our area, which has resulted in high crime rates, drug dealing being carried out in the open, drug houses where users can drive in and collect their pre-ordered supply. At the last council meeting, the Mayor offered to arrange increased security and range of patrols in our area, but this has not materialised. Instead, can I ask, is 1.2 million to renovate 2 toilet blocks or 150,000 proposed by Councillor Proud to plant 4 trees outside the courtyard of the council offices, reference Western Australia, a new fleet of electric cars for the executives, including one for the mayor, who has a salary of 155,000 plus, and the CEO who has a salary of 350,000, 100,000s of murals. Was this ever put out to tender, and who chose the artists and agreed the fee? Question, is the council aware that some kids are going to school hungry? Many people are in mortgage stress. There is a cost of living crisis going on, and yet, Mr. Mayor, you think the need for a mural is a necessity. Please justify your expenditure.
Thank you, Mr. Friel. We'll respond to you in writing.
I'm fascinated that everybody else gets a member to answer and I don't.
I'm going to have to look at that
every
recording to
time.
see what was asked.
What
next
plans
question.
does the City of Stirling have to improve the infrastructure and local amenities in our local area, considering over the last 15 years it has increased the housing density by 402 homes, but only added too many roundabouts and a chicane at a minimal expense? We have a reserve park with a sports field and that cannot be used after dark as there is no lighting. Is the council even aware that the sports field is not the only part of Yallooma Reserve, as it does not offer any seating or even a bin at the other end of the Yallooma Reserve along Langley Crescent? It rarely cuts the grass, and I doubt there is even any retic in this part of the reserve, but has recently replaced the entire retic system, no doubt at huge expense for the soccer pitch. It has been suggested to me that the City of Stirling concentrates its funding to areas where the votes are. It's daylight robbery of our ratepayers' monies when we can't cross the street due to failure of planning on the surrounding main roads. Rush hour is more like a car park on the main roads as a result of the council has caused mayhem and is causing mayhem in our area with rat runners simply because it chases the money without any consideration to the residents in our area. How is the city going to rectify our issues without relying on just words with no sincerity?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Friel. The City has already committed.
Taken on notice.
No, I actually reject most of what you just said, but the City will take it on notice.
You can reject
and
it if you like, it's a fact.
it has already responded to most of that and has said that they'll actually look into your concerns. Megan Green, please.
Good evening, my name's Megan Green and I'm a resident of Innaloo. On Tuesday the 11th of October 2022, during public question timing, question 1 of mine was taken on notice. Since the City of Stirling does not have the facilities to determine the rates collected over a period in the outlined area, could the rates collection figure please be provided for the ward of Doubleview and the suburb of Innaloo of the time frame mentioned, please? My second question. Looking at figure 9 on page 28 of the Public Open Space Strategy document, the ward of Doubleview has the smallest amount of public open space in the City of Stirling, and with the Innaloo public open space per person projected to decrease by 14% per person by 2031, what future plans are held to upgrade the current public open space for the residents in Innaloo, and will these funds be distributed evenly between the only 2 district open spaces, that being Yallooma Park and Birrelly Reserve, and if not, why?
Thank you for that question. Look, we'll have to take that on notice and get back to you, but I don't think Doubleview is the lowest public open space.
Yeah, just
we can get back to you on that information.
Yeah, sure. And then my third question is, Yallooma Park is described as district open space in the Public Open Space Strategy document. According to district open space, timing of use is described as throughout the day and into the late evening. Are there any future plans to include more discretionary facilities to the district open space, such as CCTV, public toilets, additional shade areas, and other community facilities to improve the appeal and safety of this area? Please elaborate.
Thank you. And no, there is not currently, but the City has previously committed to have a look at that area. And as we said tonight, we'll look at things like the public toilet and whether there's a need for it, and then when they would go.
Thank you.
Roland Hadley, please.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. With the proposed changes to Jackadder Lake area, how much has been budgeted for this project?
Sorry, what project and what changes, Mr. Hadley?
The Jackadder Lake area, which is undergoing or proposing changes of trees, bird's nests and everything else, apparently.
Okay. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. You are correct. Currently, there is a concept for some changes that we're consulting upon. So again, no decision has been made. In terms of the budgeted amount, I'll need to take that on notice and let you know. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the budgeted amount is.
Okay, thank you. How much has been spent on consulting fees so far, and will the city provide the total cost of consulting fees on the completion of this project?
Thank you. We'll take that on notice, Mr Hadley, and respond to you in writing.
Thank you. Will the future maintenance of these proposed changes be undertaken by the City of Stirling workforce or allocated to external contractors?
Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. The simple answer is that there'll be a mix. We do a lot of in-house maintenance with our own staff, but specialist services like tree work, we do use contractors. So it does depend on the nature of the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second question.
I thought that was all three.
No, that's just A, B, C, that was all.
Oh, well played, Mr.
It's all
Hadley.
down here, you know.
Well played.
Second question. I requested details of legal fees expenditure in separate categories, names of companies and amounts several weeks ago. Can the Finance Department please furnish details as early as possible and include them in the minutes?
Mr Blanchard?
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and apologies, Mr Hadley, that we haven't been able to provide those details to you yet. We are in the middle of conducting a by-election, which has distracted us somewhat. We will get those details to you shortly.
Thank you. I notice in the...
Is this three, Mr Hadley?
Well, I'm very bad at maths, actually. Yes. In the Audit Committee report of 7th of November, your item 112.1/1A1 tonight, there's an expression, follow-up of deep dive service review. Are the words deep dive really necessary? Can it be kept simple?
Yes, they are,
Thank you.
Mr Hadley. Peter Ellis.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Good evening, councillors, staff and fellow ratepayers. My name is Peter Ellis and Corrine, 7 Taxwell Close. May I refer to the question 3 from the 25th of October 22 meeting, and can I acknowledge the instant response from the Manager of Engineering Services section? Thank you.
Thank you.
In the answer 1 of the council meeting of the 25th of October, where it mentions rubbish trucks reversing and using private driveways, can you tell me how many driveways have been damaged by these trucks in the last 5 years?
Oh, Mr Murphy, try that one.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. I'm not able to instantly tell you that, but I'll certainly look into it. Obviously, we deal sometimes with insurance claims, so we do have logs for
It was
for
in the
damage.
minutes there on the 25th of October. Thank you. May I refer to the annual report of 2021, and on page 47 it lists employee costs of $84.3 million. And on page 187 it lists staff expenses of $102,950,110 whatever dollars. And can you apply how much it actually cost in payments for all the employees of the City of Stirling?
Thank you, and we'll respond to you in writing, Mr Ellis.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, councillors.
Thank you. That's all I have on my list, unless I've missed anyone. If I haven't, we'll proceed with the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Item 8, application for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? No indication. Item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 25th of October 2022. Moved Councillor Hatton, seconded Councillor Migdal. And a show of hands to accept those minutes, councillors. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. I have nil. 11, unresolved business from previous meetings, nil. And now we'll move on to item 12, which is reports and recommendations from committee. And we'll start with the audit committee items. Councillors, are there any of these audit committee items that you wish to pull out this evening? If there's none of the audit that wish to be pulled out, then I will go to the chair of the audit committee, Councillor Lagan, if you'd like to move the balance of reports.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the balance of the report.
Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Perkov. And if you go to the formal vote now for those audit committee items. Thank you. Councillors, that is unanimous. So members of the gallery, those at home, please be advised that all of those audit committee items or recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. So as they read in the committee recommendations. Councillors, will now move on to the planning and development committee items. Please note that 12.2 PRS E2 is required to be pulled out as Councillor Sandri has declared a proximity interest and will need to leave the chamber. Councillors, are there any of these you wish to pull out? Councillor Sandri?
12.2 DS1.
Thank you. Are there any other items that wish to be pulled out? If not, I will start with that one. So we'll go to item 12.2 DS1. Councillor Migdale is chair of that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Proud. Is anyone opposed? In that case, I will not open debate and we'll put that one to a vote. Thank you, councillors, and that motion is carried with Councillor Crowdo, Farrelly, Hatton, Lagan, Migdale, Olo, Perkoff, Proud, Thornton and myself voting for, and against Councillor Ferrante, Kristovich and Councillor Sandri. I'll now go to item 12.2 PRS E2. Just wait for Councillor Sandri. All right, so noting that Councillor Sandri has now left the chamber, I will go to you, Councillor Migdale. Page 123.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will hand over to Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the alternative recommendation on the white paper, part 1 and 2.
Yep, so if you just read that out.
So that is that council authorises advertising of the proposed to close the right-of-way at 28079 being part of lot 50, house number 43R Dundas Road, Inglewood, in accordance with section 52 of the Land Administration Act 1997, and part 2 reads that an elected member workshop be held within the next 12 months to allow further discussion to review of the strategies and principles of the rights of way management strategy. And I did have conversation with the director of planning, and I'm happy with the timelines and what may or may not be discussed at the workshop in the future.
Thank you, and that's seconded by Councillor Migdale, and that intent is similar to the committee recommendation. It's just bring it to council. Is anyone opposed to this? If not, I will put that item. Thank you, councillors, and that is unanimous. If we can now invite Councillor Sandri to come back in. Thank you, and I will now go to Councillor Migdale as chair of the committee to move the balance of reports.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the balance of the reports.
And Deputy Mayor Proud has seconded. I will go to the vote. Councillors? That is unanimous. Thank you. So members of the gallery, again, please be advised the remainder of those Planning and Development Committee recommendations have now been adopted by exception resolution. And we'll move on to the Director Council items, starting with 13.1, the Walga Best Practice Governance Review. Councillor Lagan, I believe you have an alternative recommendation.
Yes, I'd like to move the alternative recommendation I've included in B, part 1 and 2. Did you want me to read those
Yeah,
additions?
if you could just read and how it differs. Thanks.
So it differs from the recommendation in the report that was A, does not endorse the models proposed by the Best Practice Governance Review. That documentation was in the minutes and online. Members would have also received a notice from Walga for feedback today via email. And that report put forward a number of models for possible change to the governance best practice or they're up for discussion. We're saying 1, does not endorse, and B, requests that the best practice governance review be conducted again by an independent consultant. And what I've done is added and further request that 1, the terms of reference and timeframe for an independent review of the best practice governance review be established by 31st of December 2022 to enable the review to commence as soon as possible in 2023. That matches fairly closely the timeline that Walga has set itself. And part 2, that the cost of the independent review be met by the West Australian Local Government Association from reserves or auditing funds, and they do have reserves and have auditing funds that would match the requirement that we're seeking here.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation, councillors? Deputy Mayor Proud is seconding. Is there anyone opposed to this? No. In that case, I will put that to the vote, councillors. That is unanimous. Thank you. 13.2, the use of civic facilities for citizenship ceremonies. Do I have a mover of a motion? Page 178. Deputy Mayor.
Moving the officer's recommendation.
Move the officer's recommendation on page 178. Is there a seconder for that, for the dates? Thank you, Councillor Farrelly. Is there anyone opposed to those dates? I will put that to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 14. We'll go to item 14.1, the proposed notice of motion on federal budget impacts on local government by Councillor David Lagan. Is there a mover of a motion for this one? Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation on page 182 in the report and thank the officers for the commentary. Just when I do, I'll note today that ALGA has also put out a statement seeking assistance of around $200 million to assist with the processes that were discussed in the federal government recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri has seconded. Is anyone opposed? I'll put that to the vote. I'm just waiting for Councillor Sandri. That's all right. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Number 14, notice of motion for consideration. 14.1, the proposed notice of motion. Sorry. Repeat myself. 14.2, proposed notice of motion from Councillor Carlo Perkoff, Lake Gwelup Charity Bins. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the alternate rec, which is on page 186.
If you can just read that out for us, please.
I can, in 2 parts. 1, that Council notes the information contained within this report, and 2, that the charity clothing bins on Council control land policy be reviewed and presented to Council in March 2023. The last time it was reviewed was about 10 years ago, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Kristovich. Is anyone opposed? A question?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I thought these bins had already been moved.
And that's why there's an alternate rec, councillor. So it's not saying they'll be moved, that this is all the charity clothing bins on council-controlled land be reviewed.
Yep.
Be reviewed. Yep. Councillor Ferranti.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question. I know there's been a lot of issues with charity bins in general where people have died and so forth. Is there any structural framework of how these bins should be presented from a safety perspective that inhibits any of those types of things? If we're looking at the report, would that be possible to get an inquiry around that?
Yeah, and I think the intent is to look at all those different aspects and bring it back, certainly. Thanks, councillor. So no further questions, then Councillor Farrelly.
Probably refers to what Councillor Ferranti is talking about. They seem to be disappearing, that opportunity to find them. So maybe if that's part of where the localities are that they're still and why.
Thanks.
Because I think we need to look at the big framework.
No, the intent, so councillors, the intent is very clear that this highlighted one issue. Officers discussed with the councillor, and they agreed there were several issues around charity bins. We deal with all. I'm sure as councillors you get phone calls all the time. the council's very supportive of what they stand for, the organisations themselves and the recycling component of it. It's about working with those charities and trying to find out a bit of fact-finding and work out how we can make sure we support them, but in the right way throughout the city. And all of that will be considered. So I'll now put that one to the vote. And that, Councillor Sundry, is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Proposed notice of motions. Councillors, do you have any other proposed notice of motions you would like to raise this evening? Councillor Sundry?
Thank you, and I apologise, the officers, I do have it written here, so you don't need to try and write it down. That a report be presented to council on where the arts hub will be in, when the arts hub will be in place at the Inglewood Town Square. And the second one is that a report be presented to council identifying options for a second type of skip bin on demand to allow alternative rubbish like building material.
Thank you, councillor. Any other indication? Councillor Farrelly?
Actually, I should have these up. That the city communicates with Main Roads WA on the feasibility of opening up the left turn out of South Trig car park onto West Coast Highway. That means it moves with the traffic, and it's creating another exit. Cars will not be forced back along West Coast Drive, around the little roundabout and then into Curranup Road. It basically alleviates that, and people at the surf club and that can just get quickly out on that Marmin Avenue. West Coast Highway, I should say. It's not Marmin yet. The other one is that the city prepares costing and feasibility of formalising car bays along the Trig Esplanade to protect dunes and green corridors and provide therefore a safer alternative to the current situation. That's the internal road. At the moment, the dunes.
Thanks, councillors. Save it for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. They're clear. Thank you. Councillor Lagan?
I'll have to write it down. But yeah, mine is...
these always go well, councillor.
That a report be presented to council prior to mid-year budget review for the purchase of 2 additional security trailers using funds available from existing reserves.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any other noms on the run? In that case, I'll go on to item 15, a question by members of which due notice has been given. There are 2 on the agenda, 15.1 and 15.2, on page 187 and 188. Item 16, new business of an urgent nature, I have nil, and 17, matters behind closed doors. I now need a mover and a seconder to go behind closed doors. Move Councillor Kristovich, seconded Councillor Olo. If we can just go to the vote on your pads. And that is unanimous, councillors, so we'll now pause. Thank you, councillors. So we're now going back into council, just waiting to see if anyone has hung around while we open the doors. No, there's no indication. So that does bring us to the end of the meeting and the closure. So item 18, I declare the meeting now closed at 7:44 p.m. Thank you, councillors, for this evening, and good night to the viewers at home.